Hey guys, subscribe for daily content, and if you're shopping for gear, make sure you check out the description for the newest items at some of the very best online retailers. There's also links for some of the items that I personally recommend. Thanks! What's going on YouTube? Metal Complex here, and today I've got another interesting knife review slash knife overview to share with you guys. This is the CRKT and Foltz Ritual Compact. A lot of you probably remember that giant curvy blue and white thing that CRKT came out with here not too far back. This is a compact version of it. Now, a lot of you might be wondering, is it manual or is it assisted? It is assisted. They do make a manual version of it. It is much more expensive though, and that'll be saved for a different review. But this is the standard version and it is assisted. And we see that every now and then. I know that most of you watching my channel don't prefer an assisted knife, but we have to remember, I think we like to view ourselves as like the vast majority of the knife world, and we are not. We're like 1% of it. And there are still plenty of people out there who prefer assisted knives. We're going to talk about it for sure. But yeah, thanks so much to CRKT for sending this in for me to take a look at. Thanks to my patrons for supporting me, and please make sure to follow me on Instagram at metal_complex. All variations of the ritual will be linked down in the description, so you guys can take a look if you want to. It does help my channel when you use those links, but that's entirely up to you. Let's go ahead and get a measurement. This one is definitely worthy of the word compact, especially versus its larger brother. Still 7 inches though. Blade length, you know, if you straighten this out, it'd be a much larger knife, right? Shut up, Complex. Okay, the overall length of the blade is, yeah, technically, I mean, from tip, how do I measure this? If you measure it like straight down, you're looking at 3 inches. But if you actually put the tape on the tip and go to the top middle of the bolster, it's 3 1/4. So however you want to view that, your cutting edge length, which we do have to do from the tip, is about 3 1/8. The only reason I do those different measurements is because depending on where you are, this may or may not be legal, right? And depending on how the person who's in charge measures it, it might land you in trouble, right? So just be aware of that. Let's go ahead and do some size comparisons up against any custom scales you find in this section can be found down in the description under Original Goat and others, up against the 8010 and the 8020.5. It's just not shaped like anything normal. It's such an S-shaped, you know, whenever I see this shape, I think of Dmitry Sinkovich, right? The ZTs, that's what I think of every time. But it is that it's not that he came up with that. It's just, this is a trailing point blade. This is an extremely Persian-y blade, right? So it's a little shorter, but it's, it still kind of it occupies a lot of space, both in the open and closed position because of how curvy and kind of different it is, right? It's an extremely aggressive and tactical banana, is the best way to describe it. Let's go ahead and, I guess in the closed, no banana is shaped like this. I mean, in the closed position, right? That is an angry banana. Let's put it up against the Spyderco PM2 and the Spyderco Para 3. And closest to the size of the Para 3 for sure. And then finally, let's put it up against the Benchmade Griptilian, or in this case, the Ritter Hogue and the Hogue Deca. Okay. How's the action? Well, it's an assisted knife, right? And there was a day a long time ago where, you know, I liked assisted knives, you know, and I felt like, cool. You don't have to screw around with it. You just pull the thing and it just opens, right? And then we figured out how to, you know, have detents that were properly tuned, and it got so good that and the assisted feature on a knife is kind of pointless, right? I mean, they could have just done a detent ball here. They clearly can, because this one works just fine, right? The more expensive one has a detent that works fine, and they could have easily done that. But again, remember, CRKT's market is not just us, right? Nose in the air enthusiast collectors. Oh, I'm sorry, I'm describing myself. Their market is enormous, right? And there are plenty of people who casually enjoy knives, who don't have any care or interest in this enthusiast corner, and it works for them, right? And I think that's fine. I don't think that assisted knives should disappear, right? But on the other hand, it is kind of pointless, right? And a lot of people who, say they prefer assisted knives or that's just what they like because they spring out so quickly, as soon as they're introduced to a knife with a properly tuned detent, which is literally throw a rock in any direction, you can find it, right? For the same price or less, in this case, definitely less. They're like, oh, well, I don't need that assisted feature then, right? Because you can deploy it just fine. And it's one less thing to break, right? Thinks it's like a torsion bar or something like that. So, yeah, it does. It deploys. It feels like it's running on nylon, which it is. And nylon does a good job of keeping debris out of the pivot, just like phosphor bronze, right? There is no specific tier where the pivot internals become one thing, like indefinitely. A lot of people think like, oh, for that much money, it should be on bearings. You can get knives that cost less than $30 that run on bearings, and you can also get knives that cost multiple thousands of dollars. Same way with phosphor bronze, and believe it or not, nylon. There are still some really expensive knives that run on nylon. What I don't like about nylon is they squish. It's really hard to get a knife to not wiggle, right, and still be smooth. And this is the case here. Basically, this has side-to-side blade play, and it's basically just the nylon in there getting squished on either side. But if I tighten it down to eliminate it, it squishes it so much it creates too much friction, and then the assisted feature won't deploy the blade. So this probably should have just been bearings. I don't know why they wanted to do that. They're also really tiny, right? There might be something else under there, but honestly, it just feels like nylon, which is just kind of disappointing. Either way, whatever it is underneath there, it doesn't feel very good. And it's immediately like, this is the best I can get it, and I can definitely feel a little bit of side-to-side blade play. Now, this other one, this more premium one, is definitely running on bearings. Definitely. In fact, we can see them in there. It looks like it might be phosphor bronze, but this is definitely bearings. And this one has zero blade play. It's much harder. You're not going to squish those bearings as you tighten it, right? So that's just something that bothers me, especially looking at the price tag, right? But even if this was half the price that it was, I would still be bothered by it. People just don't like to feel that, Even somebody who's not familiar with our territory, the knife world, I remember not knowing anything, and I was like, oh, why does the blade like flop around in there? Nobody likes to feel that, right? So that's kind of disappointing, but it will deploy, and the liner lock is enough to, I'm going to poke holes in my, in my top here. The liner lock is enough to, I don't want to do that. I'm just going to use a block of wood to keep the knife from, disengaging with a light, some light spine tapping. So that's fine. At least the geometry is good. And there's no up and down play. So the liner lock is fine. It's really just the internals, right? That's not a tolerance issue. That's just something that you commonly see with nylon washers, and it's the reason that I don't love them. I remember my old Hinder knives on nylons, and I know a lot of you guys do too. And those sucked, right? So anyways, let's go ahead and do a hardware check. I'm going to get out my tools. My tools are very inexpensive and very recommendable. So you can find those right down in the section of my description that talks about the tools I use on this channel. The pivot is a T8. I know that because I used it to try and get the tip centered, get it, deploying well and get it locking out correctly, and I just couldn't do it. I'm sure I could make some more adjustments to the frame and to the scales, but it just won't. It won't center out. The other one is beautifully centered. I think we can see there. This one is perfectly centered. So, are you guys making them in the same factory? I just don't know. This other one is much more premium one. You would think that it's just gotten more premium materials, but it is all the way around it just feels like a much nicer product. So I don't know. They are definitely both made in China, though. I'm not sure if it's like CRKT's own OEM or if they use somebody else. I'm not really sure. But we have T6 screws holding on the bolsters, which are in fact separate pieces and actually bolsters. We got 2 screws in here holding on the micarta, and then undoubtedly at least 1 more screw holding in this backspacer back here. So quite a bit, but still it is a simple construction. It's just a liner lock with a torsion bar, presumably. So if you do need to take it apart, it'll be pretty easy to take apart and put back together. As long as you have the right tools for the job, you should be good to go. Let's go ahead and measure the blade stock thickness on this guy. Blade stock thickness is coming in at, let's see, 120 thousandths, so about what you'd expect. And have we weighed it? I don't think we have. Let's weigh it real quick. Well, that won't do. Let's turn it off and turn it back on. This thing is all wacky ever since I dropped it. That piece came off the bottom, but it does still weigh things accurately. 3.77 ounces, which I think is probably heavier than you might assume. It's not super far off. Sorry, we got an update. 3.74. It's not super far off, especially if you subscribe to the idea that the blade is actually 3 1/4 inches long. It's not terrible, right? Definitely going to be a butt-heavy knife. Wow. The balance on this knife is way back here, which actually makes it kind of noticeable on such a small knife. Like, you are very aware that the weight is way back here and not in the blade. And part of that is because those bolsters are steel. That was a surprise to me. I wasn't 100% sure exactly what they were, but they're steel. That makes sense. In fact, here. They are steel. Anyways, let's move on to the meat and potatoes here. This is one of those knives that's got a really polarizing aesthetic, but some people just love curvy knives. Like, they exclusively love the ultra curvy blades. Personally, I don't love the aesthetic, but I recognize that that is just, you know, me having certain tastes. It's certain, I just enjoy certain things that other people don't, and don't enjoy things that other people do, right? It's just, it's very subjective whether or not the blade looks good. But it is a very curvy blade. It is relatively, I mean, it's not thick. It'll slice, right? This does seem better overall. Like, the fit and finish, truthfully, outside of just the blade being kind of a little bit more wobbly than I would love, it's all right. It's better than some CRKTs I've looked at in the past. But here's another interesting thing here. The bolster to scale zone looks slightly off there, while the one with the premium one with the Damascus and the carbon fiber, wow, that is like flawless. I would really like to know, are these made in the same place? You know, we can kind of see there's some weird gaps right here. Like, this is, you know, I don't really love this area. The individual pieces themselves are fine, right? And it's not like they can't do it. I mean, it matches up to the scale just fine. The edges of the micarta are also, you know, done well. The blade, it has an even bevel on both sides all the way down to the back end. It's just this one little area right here that's a little bit ugly, right? But everything else is done just fine. I think they just sharpened it a little bit too much because on the other side it looks okay. But the blade itself, it'll slice, it'll cut. It's not going to be the most convenient thing, right? You can see here it's definitely sharp enough to slice paper, right? And it pokes. You can see there's the hole. If you are trying to use this to break down cardboard boxes or cut something that's thicker or creates more friction, you're definitely going to have a little bit more of an issue. Black washed blades are probably that's probably my least favorite finish. I think I would actually take a belt satin finish over the black wash finish. And it creates for a very odd look here. We have black, like a chalky black with like a light brown and then a dark brown. And then you have the same liner. So it's not my favorite aesthetic. I definitely prefer how this is beautiful, right? But again, we're going to talk more about that when we review that one, because it really is a different. I was going to put them in the same video, and then I started looking. I was like, this is totally different. This is a much nicer knife, as it should be, because it's much more expensive. But it also just has way better fit and finish. So I don't know. But the aesthetic of this knife is not for me, right? Perhaps if they had it in different colors, maybe it would look a little bit better. But to my knowledge, this is the only way that this comes. So if you like it, that's fine. But the blade will cut. It's probably best used for light, just
what. This is a knife that you get out and you use it, you carry it because it makes you smile, because you like the way that the blade is curved, that the handle's curved, right? Ergonomically, 3 fingers, surprisingly okay. It's odd to me that it's as comfortable as it is for 3 fingers. Now, I don't like a 3-finger knife. I like to have all 4 fingers in a comfortable spot, right? Why do I need that? I don't know. It's just one of those personal things. With this, my pinky is struggling to find a position that is comfortable. I can put it up here, but it's not comfortable. I wish that the back of this was just not ledged like this. There's enough, it's not, I think there actually is subtle contouring on the bolsters are subtly contoured, right? Same with the micarta scales, right? Or it's just very neatly rounded. I think that's contributing to it. That and the areas where there are peaks are not as aggressive as you might think. I mean, it really looks like something that would just be wildly uncomfortable. It's not comfortable. It's just a lot more comfortable than I thought it would be, right? But completely usable. If you want to use this to cut open packages here or there and make yourself smile, then yeah, it'll do that 100%. So yeah, it's weird because it's like just the connection areas, the certain areas like this in particular is like not a great fit and finish look. But the individual pieces themselves are machined just fine, right? The pocket clip is okay. It kind of comes to the middle and it's got a bit of a bill, right? And because of the way that the handle is shaped, you're definitely going to notice it. I mean, it's like right here. So in and out of the pocket though, it's fine. It works. Carry depth. You got quite a bit of this shape sticking up out of your pocket. So that's something you should be aware of, right? That's about right there. That's what's going to be sticking up out of your pocket. So, you know, just think about that. In and out of the pocket, like I said, is just fine. Functionally, it works. The stop pin, I'm sorry. The stop pin is way deep in there, but it's located in its traditional position. And like I said, we do have side-to-side play, but it's mostly the mushing of the washers in there, the nylon washers. If we had something like bearings, that would not be the case, even with them being on the smaller side. No up and down blade play. There is no lock stick. There's no pivot lash at all, right? So they got that pivot barrel machined perfectly. And then, you know, it doesn't really, it's just like an assisted, I don't think there's a, is there a detent ball? Yeah, there is, a little teeny tiny one, right? But I don't know that this could be de-assisted. I think the detent would be super light, like basically non-existent. So could you de-assist it? Maybe. Probably wouldn't work the way that you'd want it to, though. No wiggle or detent lash or anything like that. What's the blade steel? We didn't really talk about the blade steels. 12C27, that's Sandvik. To my knowledge, the same company that makes 14C28N. 14C28N is just a better steel. Sandvik 12C27, we used to see it more on Kershaw knives. I think 14C28N is just a better steel all the way around. There's nothing wrong with 12C27. It's just not, it's, you know, they could have used something else. This knife is 80 bucks. I don't think this is an $80 knife. Nowhere close. I think that even if this knife was $40, I would still be complaining about the fit and finish issues here. The aesthetics, that's subjective, right? One thing or another. I think it should be manual. It should run on bearings. You guys can clearly do a non-assisted, right? A good, you know, flipper. I think there should have been a couple of different color options, especially the original colorway that the big one came in. That was pretty cool. Or something close to it that you could make like a more budgety version. I think that would have been a lot nicer. And then things like where the bolster connects to the scale, like that has to be smoothed out. All of that before we get anywhere near 80 bucks, right? But the problem is that, I mean, this is made in China. It's not like it's made somewhere where the labor costs are much higher, right? The competition against this knife is just like wacky. Like there's so much competition in this territory. And there's so many knives that are priced literally for half that have perfect fit and finish, right? And a lot of the designs have a lot of personality too. So, if you want this model, and I would say for the premium one, because it is a far, far better bang for your buck, even being substantially more expensive. But this version of this knife is just very unimpressive to me. If you want to buy it, I'll link it in the description, and I'll make a commission. I got this for free. CRKT sent this to me. And I like CRKT. There's 2 premium knives they sent me are really nice, right? Especially the Obverse. Holy moly. That thing was cool. This is not super impressive, but just want to be transparent. I'll link it down there, and I'll make a commission if you buy it, but I don't recommend this knife. I still want to thank CRKT for sending it to me. I appreciate that. But that's going to be pretty much it today. Please make sure to follow me on Instagram at metal_complex. If you enjoyed this video, leave a like. If you'd like to check out my other content, I do, of course, have lots of videos of knives that are either expensive or inexpensive that I do or don't like, so check those out. And if you enjoy all my content, go ahead and click on that Metal Complex logo right there and subscribe because there's definitely more coming. Thanks again for watching, everybody, and have a great day.